It is August 11th, folks. August 11th. And I did something really stupid August 11th. Before I started a stream, see, I have a herb vaporizer. Apparently, it is the coolest way to get high. That's what the kids are saying, you know. But, anyway, there's people on Reddit. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is I was filling it, and there was a bug flying around my fucking house. And my dumbass filled it up and then tried to clap it together with the fucking on the fly. I tried to hit the fly or whatever it was with my hand, in both hands, mosquito. I tried to clap the mosquito, and I just hit my weed vaporizer just fucking all over the place. It was a horrible mess. That's how my day is starting. Also, I have not gone to bed tonight because, well, first of all, I've been waking up at like 4 p.m., which isn't ideal for the average person. But when you're unemployed, trying to stream, waiting for school to start last month, hey, it is what it is. But I thought I have not streamed in 4 days. I might as well put on the best performance of a lifetime, you know, and try to bring some faith back into the Twitch community. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, we have Lilley leashed here. He's unleashed currently. We got back-to-back Lilley unleashed, folks. So back-to-back, so I hope you're ready for a special episode of Lilley leashed. Let's see what he's got cooking up for us today. So his video we're going to watch first is the MP leaving the Conservative Party is not what you think. People leave, some dude, I guess, transferred over to the Libs, the winning side. But let's hear why it's not what we think,
Larry Brock
folks.
is the latest Conservative MP to leave Pierre Poilievre's party, but no, it's not what you think. Hi, I'm Brian.
Is it
Lilley,
not?
political columnist for the
Looks
Toronto
like
Sun.
the Conservatives
Larry Brock
suck.
is the 7th Conservative MP to leave since the April 2025 election. It's not good news for Pierre Poilievre, but it's not what many people are thinking. Brock is not crossing the floor to join the Liberals. And no, he did not take an appointment from the Carney government, although one was offered. And finally, no, despite what some ill-informed, uneducated people will have you believe, he's not cashing in on a big fat MP's pension to go retire at this point.
Why does he get a pass on the pension, but every other politician like Carney, Justin Trudeau, everyone's like, I'll get his pension.
Larry Brock is
he works, you know,
pension to go retire at this point. First off, Larry Brock has been an MP for less than 5 years, and you need to be an MP for 6 years to get a pension. And at 6 years as a backbench opposition MP, you're not going to make that much money. Is it a nice supplement to whatever else you might have? Sure. But you're not going to be living in the lap of luxury at 25 to 30.
Do you think these people, these hardworking people who went into the government, seriously went into the government to make money? Come on, Brian. He's doing it for the love of the game, obviously.
$30,000 a year on a pension. My goodness, what do people think these guys make? Apparently, they think they make far more than they do. But let's go back to the beginning. Is Brock crossing the floor as Matt Genereux and others, Michael Maude, did before them, Chris D'Entremont? No, he's not crossing the floor, and he has never, to my knowledge, thought about crossing the floor.
Who cares about this guy, by the way?
The Liberals did dangle the idea of a judicial appointment in front of Larry Brock. Now, I don't know Larry Brock. I don't believe we've ever spoken, but I do know the full backstory from speaking to people who were part of this story, who know what happened. And Larry Brock was approached by the Liberals, and they dangled the idea of a judicial appointment in front of him.
How dare they? I don't know what that means, but
he didn't sit there and say,
not the judicial appointment.
Like to be a judge. He's a former Crown prosecutor. He went to Conservative Whip Chris Warkentin, and he went to Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer and told them what happened. Now, some people are sitting there saying, wait a minute, the criminal code makes it an offense to offer someone a bribe or an inducement to take a job in order to step down from an elected position. That's true. But how do you get around that? Well, it wasn't a direct offer of...
What? Is that the take here? They're bribing him. They're bribing him by being a shitty salaried employee with shitty benefits.
Hey, you step.
What a con.
Down. We'll appoint you as a judge. It was more along the lines of, hey, Larry, you're really smart. Have you ever thought of applying to be a judge? You have to apply to be a judge at the federal level. And the Liberals were trying to entice Brock to leave based on those terms. Why would they do that? Because they knew that this man who had been a Crown prosecutor until he was elected in 2021 had a limited time window. Brock's leave of absence from his job as Crown prosecutor was coming to an end. He either had to stay on as an MP or leave and go back and return as a Crown prosecutor. He's decided to do the latter. Now, it would be foolish.
Is it Tuesday? We might have more Lilley Unleashed. This is old last week. Lilley's
Brock to apply for a federal judge position as well, but it's unlikely to happen. And he's not being given a quid pro quo on this. He is simply going back. Now, if you've watched Larry Brock at committee, as I have,
that lamb for also, this is not I can see this chair, the cuck chair in the corner, Brian Lilley. I'm sorry, Brian. I'm sorry to expose you like this. Brian, get your cuck chair out,
for society
out of
at
the
large,
corner,
or for
Brian.
His community of Brantford Brant.
Brian, please. Please hide your cuck chair next time you're filming a professional video, please.
Brock is a smart man when it comes to the law. That's why the Liberals tried to entice him, saying, Larry, you're so smart. Why don't you become a judge? He's not the type of judge they would want. He's not even the type of Crown prosecutor they would want. But if you believe in justice, if you believe in cracking down on criminals, then he's the type of Crown prosecutor you would want. He might even be the type of judge that Doug Ford would want, though I doubt that Doug Ford is going to put his hands on that hot potato at this point and trying to point him to a provincial judicial appointment. Yes, there are two different judicial appointments. Federal
this is a hot judge provincial. Commodity right here.
I don't expect Brock to be getting one of those anytime soon, although would I be disappointed if Larry Brock were to be made a judge? Absolutely not. But I want to be clear. Brock was offered a judicial appointment in a roundabout way months ago. He didn't take it because the man has integrity. The man decided to report it instead to the superiors, the leadership within the provincial or the federal party around Pierre Poilievre. He told them what was going on, and he didn't listen to what the Liberals were saying.
Wow.
In the end, he's going back to be a Crown prosecutor, to serve his community in that way. And on that front, he can probably do more than he can as an MP. He's done a lot already.
I don't understand. Why, if I'm this guy, why would I not take the cushier job, better job? Because I hate the Liberals so bad? I don't understand.
He led the charge on getting bail reform and was successful at that. And for that, anyone that cares about a sound judicial system should be thankful to Larry Brock for what he has done. As for his future, we'll wait and see. Perhaps it'll be there. But at the end, one has to question why the rest of the media hasn't followed up on something that I reported back in April, which was that the Liberals were offering judicial appointments as a way to try and get Conservative MPs to step down so they could force a by-election. Is there a chance the Liberals win Brantford Brant South? Yeah, they could.
Is that true? Is that the whole strat? Brian, I think this will reach, Brian. I'm sorry. The fact that no one else picked it up and you're the only psycho spilling this, even the fact that he self-reported to his own Conservative caucus members and they're not making a big fuss about it, it's just you. Could tell you something, Brian. I don't know. Seems like a witch hunt.
I think it will happen after 18 years under the Conservatives. Probably not, but they have a chance. So the Liberals have been...
Enough of this, Brian. Thank you. Amazing video. Let's get on
Canada's
to your next...
economy is doing...
Yes, Canada's economy. Canadian economics, everybody. How are you feeling, folks? How's your economy? Are you booming? Are you busting? How's your portfolio doing, everyone? Anyway, Lilley Leashed, welcome back. Is Canada's economy doing awesome? ? So we're going to listen to these people talk about economics. I'm a finance major, so if you're here to learn about what they're saying and why it's wrong or why it's right for all the wrong reasons, Maybe they're using the truth to lie. We'll figure it out.
Canada's economy is doing awesome because everything is awesome when you're part of the team, right? Hi,
awesome.
I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. If you saw much of the reaction to the jobs numbers that were released last week, you would have thought Canada's economy was on fire. Hey, we produced 75,000 new jobs. The Americans just a third of that, 23,000, not even a third of that, 23,000 new jobs in the American.
Can we just start here for a second, everybody? If you're new to the channel, we know that jobs are not anything to be excited about in a capitalist economy, because jobs just mean exploitation, right? If you are a socialist, you understand exploitation as a concept. You're going to be exploited at work. So jobs, this whole thing about job growth isn't necessarily great unless you're a capitalist, because you're going, wow, I can hire all these more productive workers and still make record profits. This is great for me.
Economy, we are doing way better than the Americans, and we're sticking it to Donald Trump.
Are we?
Is that true? Not exactly.
Oh, I'm sticking it.
Let me bring in Dr. Eric Kam. He is a professor of economics at Toronto Metropolitan University. You may know it better as Ryerson.
Who is this? Eric Kim. Let's just do a quick little wiki search, shall we, about who this person is? Search. Faculty of Economics. Lilley Unleashed is on Yahoo Canada. Let's see what he's got here. Where are you? That's not him, is it? Eric Kim? Where is he? Where is he? Eric Kim, Economic Theory. Digital scare. I don't care. Never mind. This is stupid. Eric Kim, welcome to the broadcast.
But I won't ask you about that, Dr. Kam.
Lilley
let me ask you instead about the economic numbers. Our jobs numbers, let me just bring this up. Labor force survey. We are at an unemployment rate.
Not that I'm anybody, but I'm just saying. This economist is here to spout some neoliberal right-wing
labor
free
force
market
survey.
Shit, right?
We are at an unemployment rate of 6.4%. And we're supposed to think that is a good thing.
6.4%.
The Americans, meanwhile, are at an unemployment rate of 4.2%. And even if we convert ours to theirs, we're at 5.4% in their view, in their measurements. How are we beating
for me?
We're not really beating them, Brian, and thanks for the invitation. I mean, okay, this is where you have to parse out and nuance numbers. So that, by the way, that was a wonderful speech you gave off the top, none of which was true, but it was a wonderful speech about the job numbers.
We shouldn't, meaning that they're so great?
No, they're not so great at all, but they are positive. So let's first of all dive into this 75,000 number, right?
Okay,
first of all, they said it's 4 times what any economist was expecting. Well, what economist? Because no one I spoke to thought it was going to be that high. So the evidence to me, and I actually did look into this, looks like a few rebound effects, right? So if you wanted to kind of put it in a bowl, I'd say, why does this look good on paper? First of all, some of the growth is just bounce back from a ridiculously weak first quarter, because we know that Q1 was depressed by motor vehicle plants that were shutting. Oil and gas investment dropped abruptly, and government spending unexpectedly declined from where it was. So as those are reversing, you'll see Q2 mechanically looking a little bit better. Number 2, for better or for worse, our relationship with the United States is kind of coming to an equilibrium. It's not a good equilibrium, but it's an equilibrium. People are getting used to where exports and imports are falling. They know that this trade war is just not going anywhere anytime soon. So energy and non-commodity exports have strengthened. And because the U.S. economy remains relatively strong, it doesn't matter what you read, that's true, Canadian firms are getting stronger as American firms get stronger because of geography and because we're their closest trading partner, no matter what the Prime Minister wants you to believe. Also, there's a currency effect, right? The weaker Canadian dollar is improving our export competitiveness. Everyone knows if you want to increase exports, you tank the dollar. And so that's where we are.
Yes, we've learned this in finance, because that means that your labor is cheaper, everybody. That means that you work for less money, which means more exploitation, right? So that's good. That's a good thing. Your dollar's cheaper so that you can work harder for less money, so that some capitalist asshole can profit still. That's great.
We know that the policy rate is still quite low, 2.25%. Now, that's
the Bank of, just for people that aren't economic nerds like you and me, that's the Bank of Canada
Brian is
policy
such a
rate,
big
their overnight interest rate.
Nerd.
Right. Literally the rate that they lend out money to other banks. And then every other interest rate is set from that. And so it's still low. And while that doesn't instantly create a boom, and especially for those people that are going to renew mortgages that are much higher than they were during the pandemic, but lower rates gradually reduce the constraints on consumer spending and housing and business borrowing. And then finally,
but the other thing is about lower interest rates is that interest rates are kind of treated as like an anti-inflationary thing, and it's not really like that. Point them up and down wherever you want. But like, sure, people have more money in their pocket, they're gonna spend more. That's inflationary. People don't have enough money in their pocket, they're gonna save and not spend. This is deflationary. But so the whole talk about economics, sure, this is a great whoopie fucking do, but
consumers and consumption, which is household spending, has kind of returned back to pre-pandemic levels. Now, so debt is through the roof.
Oh, well,
but,
of course.
The associated consumption is high. It hasn't collapsed like some people thought it would. So I would say,
in the face of tariffs, you mean?
Yeah, in the face of tariffs. So what I would do is
well, the thing is like the tariffs, you're going to feel it at the consumer level, but I feel like they're much more of a burden for companies, obviously. Even if they're passing it on to the consumer, it's like they have a higher competitive price to put out. And at the end of the day, you're not really fixing anything.
Say, if someone says, is Canada booming? No, Canada's not booming.
We're stagnating.
The Canadian
always.
Rate of economic deterioration has stopped.
Always around zero.
That's what the data would show us, that massive deterioration may have bottomed out. But let's put a big asterisk beside this, Brian. One strong month does not dictate that Canada has a strong economy. You mentioned our unemployment rate, and we really should dive into that, because you said 6.4%. And while I take a breath, I'll tease you by saying it's way higher than that.
Please tease me.
Okay, I'll ask you about that in a moment.
Tease me. Let's see what Canada's unemployment rate 2026. Let's see what the most recent 6.4% 4 days ago. Oh, 6.4%. You're gonna say it's much higher than that? I mean, sure. Let's say there's noise. Let's say it's just let's say there's some deviation. The thing everyone has to understand about unemployment is cooked into capitalism. You need an army of the unemployed to drive down wages. Desperate workers. You need a pool of desperate people looking for work.
But let me ask,
so you could always turn over, and there's always a worker available. It's like, what are you gonna do?
About what the cheerleaders were saying last week, and I don't want to cheer against the Canadian economy. Let's be clear. I want the Canadian economy to do well, because if the Canadian economy is doing badly, that means me, my neighbors, my friends, my family are doing poorly. But 6.4%, we're cheering that we're down to 6.4%. We have been over 6% unemployment for well over 2 years. That's long before Donald Trump became president. That's long before his tariff threat entered the scenario.
That's just called, I think this is just the monopolization of the economy, the oligarchy that we live in. Yeah, companies all the time put more investments into their machinery, into their production, so that they can lay off workers, right? So when they can lay off more people and keep producing and be more productive and efficient, of course you're going to have a lot of layoffs. And Canada lives in this super monopolistic society where we only have like 4 fucking big chains in any industry, or 2.
Stats Canada publishes a guide for how to, compare our unemployment rate to the Americans, because we do measure differently. So we can't just say, well, they're at 4.2% and we're at 6.4%. We count 15-year-olds in ways that they don't. So
we count the youth.
Our rate, translated into their measurement.
So it's a little higher as we include a bigger number of the pool.
Would come out at about 5.4%.
Okay.
We're still 1.2% above them.
Sure.
And we've got Canadians saying, see, we're stronger than them. That's the government line. I don't know how you say that when, month after month, even on a good month like this, where, yes, we created more jobs than they did, both in terms of, a per capita basis, but also in just real numbers.
I did not create any jobs. We did not create anything, me and you, Brian Lilley. Some capitalist was like, okay, sure, I can hire more people now. A large majority of the economy went, all right, I'll hire some more people right now. Great.
We created more jobs. How do we turn around and say, but we're better than them with a higher unemployment rate?
Well, we know that this government and its leader do not have a strong aversion to fiction. And that's my nice way of not using the L word, because exactly what you're saying is true.
News. Even if you say they're not familiar with the 8th commandment against lying.
Yeah, that's a very good one too. And I'm sure there's a couple more they've broken, but we'll let that go. Look, you're right. We do compare unemployment a little bit differently between the two countries. But one of the ways that Canada sneaks things is by what it includes, ergo what it doesn't include in the unemployment rate that America does. And what Canada leaves out are 2 really important statistics. Number one it's called the discouraged worker hypothesis, which is we know that a lot of people are looking for work, and a job search no longer takes a few days. It can take a few months.
Sure.
And a lot of people, Stats Can have reported, are becoming discouraged with their search, and they drop out, mostly because of the psychic and the mental costs of being unemployed. And you can only knock on so many doors and windows and send emails. And so you drop out.
No one goes and knocks on doors.
The minute you drop out, you're gone from the unemployment rate, and it makes the unemployment rate look better. And we know that that's thousands of people that are basically unreported. Another little trick our government has that the U.S. doesn't play.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sure. You can manipulate data any way you want. This is a certain way to measure the unemployment rate. Is it perfect? No. Is it a perfect model? Probably not. Is it misleading? Sure. It's definitely misleading. Because there are way more workers out there in Canada that are disgruntled, out of the job, transitioning, training. So how many people do you want to include in the unemployment people? Because we include the 15-year-olds. So if we're including the 15-year-olds up to the 15-year-olds, why would it taking out the disgruntled people matter? Because aren't the 15-year-olds also disgruntled in a certain sense? I don't know. See, this is what the thing.
As soon as you are employed, you get a T4. You drop out of the unemployment rate. Sure. So what about part-time work? We know part-time work is up. Well, of course it is, because there's no benefits, there's no pension, it's precarious.
It's more exploitation.
So part-time work is
exploitation.
Up. But what about what we call the underemployed? Those part-time workers that not just would like, but need full-time work. They are not in the statistic either, Brian, and it's...
Okay. This is also my problem, because these groups overlap in a certain sense. So I can understand why they're taken out or not filed, right, in this way. Because you're going to be detailing all of these different categories for the same people of different unemployment types.
It's my belief that if you put those two together, discouraged workers, part-time workers looking for full-time work, that 6.4 jumps significantly.
Sure.
Which brings me to my point about Ontario, because Ontario in the Ford government, 8%. They're out there, thumping their chest that, hey, we had the biggest, we're the biggest driver of new employment in Canada right now. 52,000 new jobs created. Okay, let's break it down. And you can find this in the StatsCan numbers. It's all public. I'm not inventing this. Please go look yourself. That was driven by, I believe it was about a 13,000 full-time job losses. This is good. And then the difference being the number of part-time jobs, more than 65,000 part-time jobs added. And it works out to whatever the numbers are, it works out to 52,000 jobs. That's all driven by part-time growth.
Yes.
It's what the union sector used to call McJobs all the time. That was their favorite way of describing it for years. Look, a part-time job is better than no job quite often. Not always, but often. And perhaps it's a way to a full-time job. But it's not the same as a full-time job.
Come on.
No, it's not. And as I said, there's no benefit. There's no pensions. It's precarious at best. The employer and the employee are only moderately related to each other. So the cost of separation is quite low. And full disclosure, I voted for the premier 3 times. And I don't appreciate when the premier says things that are wrong. The only province in this country that is making significant gains is Alberta. And I say that not to suck up to the lovely people of Alberta, because I've been many times, but it is.
I love how it's always like a people thing. The people of Alberta, you're doing great. You're bringing in so many jobs. It's like the people of Alberta didn't do anything to bring those jobs in. Like the fucking 3 oil companies or whatever it is, the corporations. That's all they did. Was they hired X percentage more people.
Just
good job.
A fact. Some of the tumors that are affecting our economy that the government doesn't talk about, like weak productivity growth, like housing affordability, like terribly weak business investment, and of course the weak GDP growth per capita. Those first 3, productivity, affordability, business investment, you might want to go over to Alberta because they're actually doing quite well. And they're only going to be doing quite better if more companies like Meta decide to drop billions of dollars into their economy. So I'm not exactly sure where the Premier of Ontario is getting these numbers. And let me throw in one more little trick the government's playing. They're talking about now how GDP growth per person seems to be doing better. I would ask people to remember that GDP growth per person is just GDP growth divided by the population. So after Trudeau destroyed the immigration system and let in 500,000 people a year for 10 years, now we've choked that off. And they're saying, well, look at per capita growth. It's getting so much better. Really? The numerator's doing nothing. The denominator's going down. And then they're going, but look, the fraction goes up. Yeah. Once you know how a magic trick is done, Brian, it's not that interesting anymore.
Well, they
yeah, sure.
They denounced the idea of GDP per capita.
But these things, these measures of the economy and what is how is Canada's economy doing for Canadians? That's like the whole thing, right? Canada's economy for Canadians is doing horrible. You know why? Because it's a capitalist economy. That's the fucking problem. That's the reason it's so shitty, why there's so much unemployment and inflation. There's no sort of any controls or public restraint, dictated by the people to be like, hey, enough of this debt shit, enough of this market shit. None of us workers voted for this shit. We didn't agree to go to your war. We didn't agree to sign up for your debts. The tax dollars that you spent on my behalf, fuck you. No thanks. But that's not happening under a capitalist economy.
during the entire time that the immigration numbers were going through the roof and people,
Bro, I gotta step outside, bro. I'm getting hot catching Lilley. I'm getting hot leashing up Brian. All right. A little better. I can't believe it's still so hot in my house. One heat wave and my house is just cooking forever.
Like me, like you, were saying, hey, wait a minute. This is kind of a bad metric. We should pay attention. Oh, don't pay attention to that. Now they're saying, see, it's better. Look,
how would they
you don't blame the
scorpion
for stinging you. It's what they do. But you have to know that they're going to sting you. And that's my view of politicians of all stripes. You mentioned Alberta doing better. I'll just say this, 12-month year over year, Ontario has added 108,300 jobs. Alberta, which is less than a third of the size of Ontario, 91,000 jobs.
Wow.
I mean, that is a very telling statistic. But Dr. Cam, let me just
have we not just seen giant, massive Alberta deals?
Bring up a couple of other numbers here. I just got to scroll up to them.
Sure, makes a lot of sense.
In terms of where jobs are showing up, manufacturing still going down. We've had thousands of job losses in manufacturing, actually tens of thousands of job losses in manufacturing since Mark Carney became prime minister.
This is insane. This is an insane
Mark Carney's done nothing for the manufacturing sector, and it's no wonder that people are charging out of here as fast as they can.
That's
I think
the problem.
There's two really strong reasons for it. One is domestic, knowing that our productivity growth is so bad, our business investment is so bad, and we don't seem to want to offer the incentives to these companies to grow or stay. And so that brings me to the external. The United States has always been and continues to be much more generous in their seduction of companies into their country. They offer what people call sweetheart deals. They offer huge tax incentives. They offer payroll incentives. And companies in Canada are finally getting the message. They're looking around, they're taking the temperature and saying, given the business investment, given the productivity growth, given the GDP growth per capita, why are we staying here? For what? We're grossly overtaxed. We don't see that changing anytime soon. And the grass looks greener south of the 49th. And generally, they're right. So you can't blame companies for going where they're going to thrive. And right now, Canada, I know that the government says we're open for business and we're a country that you can thrive. But that's just words. You've got to show statistics, and they're not there.
Just so I can, clarify for folks who might be looking at the numbers and saying, Lilley, you're lying again, and you're not telling the truth. One, I never lied. Two,
okay, that's cap.
We added 11,000 manufacturing jobs last month. We had lost 17,000 the month before that. So there is wide fluctuation, but we've lost 52,000, or I guess now 40-odd thousand manufacturing jobs just since Mark Carney became prime minister in April of 2025. The biggest increase year over year is 126,400 jobs in healthcare and social assistance.
And listen, the big lie about jobs is that somehow more jobs means better for everybody. Not true at all. It means better for the capitalists because they can afford to hire more people and exploit them. But you're still going to get a shitty wage that's basically the average, and it's going to be eaten away by taxes, cost of living, and inflation. And then some asshole who you worked for all day is going to collect all of that surplus value and keep it to himself. That is why you're lying, Brian Lilley. That's the lie.
And so while
that's the big lie.
When you look at public administration, which would be core public service, that's going down. Healthcare and social assistance in Canada is still a government job, and that is by far the biggest growth sector. That is not the sign of a healthy economy.
it's the size of a disastrous economy. And I'm not going to waste your time or the listeners' time hearing me rail against socialism. I think I'm kind of well documented as being about as anti-socialist as anybody can be in the media. And that's tangential
coming after
too.
us, chat. Come after me.
We know that the healthcare system and the education system in this province of Ontario are collapsing under their own weight.
Yeah, maybe because it's under a fucking shitty private system. Maybe it's because people like Doug Ford and Daniel Smith constantly cut fucking funding to these programs.
And so how can you blame professionals practicing, especially in medicine, from going to the United States, where there is frankly much higher salaries, much less hours having to work, nurses having much better conditions. And I know this from talking to doctors and nurses who have moved. People have Brian, it's really sad that and I do blame the Prime Minister for this a little bit. I blame all Canadian politicians, is that there has been this thing going around that the United States healthcare system is awful and terrible and horrible.
No, don't defend private healthcare on Toronto's Sun, dude. Don't you fucking dare defend the horrific USA private system. That is outdated. It is the most shitty fucking system in the West. You have to pay out the nose just to have any sort of health. You have to be rich. In order to have healthcare, you just have to be rich or well off or middle class. Because if you're poor, you're going to die, son. Oh, you got really injured, or sick. That's a lifetime amount of debt. Oh, you don't have that money? GG. Please do not, dude. This is crazy.
It has its blemishes, but so too does Canada. And so I'm getting tired of people saying, well, the Canadian system is so much stronger. No, the Canadian system covers more people than the American system. But if you are covered in the American system, and you are a professional who has health care either privately or funded by your employer, you would be amazed at the quality of health care in the United States. So
isn't that the whole problem? Hey, if you can afford it, it's amazing. Yeah. Unfortunately, lots of people can't afford to pay out massively expensive medical bills on a shit salary.
It's like you always say, you've got to parse through the fables to get to the truth. And the truth is that until Canada starts showing some growth, real significant supply side growth in GDP, which is just the sum of all spending, and potential GDP, which is how many goods and services the country could produce, what reason is there really to stay unless you want to stay close to family and friends in Canada?
What I always tell my American friends who ask about the healthcare system is, it's great once you get in. Getting in is the problem, and getting through the triage and the rationing is horrible. The actual amount that we spend as a percentage of our healthcare spending in terms of public dollars versus private dollars is fairly comparable between Canada and the United States. We just apportion them differently. The idea that our system is 100% public and theirs is 100% private.
Oh no, our system would crush so much harder if it was 100% public. Oh my God.
We're both living in fallacies, if you believe that. Let me ask you one last thing, Eric, and that is about an issue that hits close to home for so many Canadians.
Hey, hitting me close.
We've got the Consumer Price Index. We'll get new numbers, I think, early next week.
Okay.
But the most recent numbers in July showed, oh, well, great, inflation's down to 2.8%. But the number one thing that we all can't live without is food. Price of gas goes up and down. That impacts the Consumer Price Index, the inflation number.
Yeah.
We can decide not to drive. Everyone. We can take measures to drive less, to drive more fuel efficiently.
An electric
we all
car,
need to
Brian.
eat, though. And, the government's celebrating that food inflation was down to...
Actually, under a market system, a private system, when there's scarce food, people who can afford it get it. That's how the system should work, according to this dumb fuck and his dummy economist.
Just 3.9% in June, compared with 4.3% in May. And when you go over the past several years, food is up more than 30%. Just last month, fresher frozen chicken, the cheapest of the proteins, up 5.7%, on top of all the other increases it's faced. This is where people are feeling it.
Who controls the prices, Brian? Who? Not the government. No one controls the prices except for capital owners. Capitalists set their prices. They want maximum profit. They're not going to eat into their own maximum profits so that you can afford food. Are you stupid?
Oh, absolutely. It really, all you have to do is walk around a grocery store and you see prices that you can't believe. I always use this narrative, and it's true. Full disclosure, I'm a professor. My wife is a teacher in the TDSB. That's about the two most secure jobs you can have. And you'd be amazed how many things in the grocery store we walk right by because I'm not prepared to pay that for that I used to pay half. No, it's very unfortunate what's going on. One day we could even dedicate a whole other talk to why government runs supermarkets.
That's called the free market. I thought you loved the free market. That's the free market at work, baby.
Stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I'm not stuttering. That's true. You know what the government does about this too? A lot of our theme is, what does the government do? Well, first of all, they forget to tell you that these are month over month statistics. They don't do that. They should, because that's compounding the problem month over month. That's number one. And number two, they keep coming up, like unemployment, with new statistics to measure CPI, right? The Consumer Price Index. And they come up with core and semi-core, and they come up with, let's take out durables. They're just taking out the things that make the number look the worst. So I've seen many different CPI measures. And if you look at the bottom of the asterisk, it says we've removed food and gasoline and natural gas. So you've removed the most important parts, what we call with the lowest elasticity, where people have no choice but to buy these things. But you've taken them out of the statistic. Congratulations, it looks better.
Is that what happened? Where are they pulling this from? Do they know that they took out? Does it say they took out these data points? That's how the model works? You can critique any fucking statistical model you want. It's all gonna suck. The CPI is based on a 4-income household. No, that's crazy. A 4-person household, 2 double income, 2 kids. Tell me how many people still live like that. That doesn't include a fuck ton of singles people.
You've got to drive. You got to heat your home. You got to eat.
Can be critiqued like this.
So we're just basing it off of cheaper computers.
Yeah, you're basing it off of
cheaper NVIDIA cards.
Yes, cheaper computers.
Cheaper
you're basing it off of the fact that car prices have fallen a little bit, not a lot. They cherry pick all statistics. And by the way, all governments do it. You cherry pick the numbers that you want to show off and you hide the rest.
Yeah, of course.
But it's most telling because people get numbers. And to your point, they look at these numbers.
That's not true. Nobody gets numbers.
Don't see where they come from sometimes. But Canadians en masse aren't stupid. And when they see numbers like 2 and 3% inflation, but they can't afford to buy meat at the grocery store, they know they're being lied to.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've noticed is, as someone who loves to eat beef as often as I can, and it's not as often as I'd like, is the cuts that you do get at the butcher counter in the supermarket. No, I'm not going to a fancy butcher here, Eric. I'm going to the Loblaws or the Metro.
Strikes again.
The cuts that you get are thinner and they're cheaper.
Oh,
so they're not the good cuts anymore. And if you do get the good cuts,
dude,
it's down to this.
It hurts.
It's tiny.
It does.
Why? Because they know the sticker shock. If they put something out that's too high, nobody's buying it. But maybe they'll get you if they put out a really thin cut of steak or a really thin pork chop or something, and then they'll people will say, "Yeah, okay, I'll buy that," not realizing that it's essentially shrinkflation. So
it's you know what? Really quickly, I was at a store today. I won't mention which one, but a grocery store, and I was looking at steaks.
Okay, so it's only one of like 3. Loblaws, Safeway, Walmart. Am I forgetting one? Sobeys.
He said, oh my gosh, steaks must be on a ridiculous sale. I've never seen them this cheap in years. And my wife goes, look what the label says, fast fry, which means they're the size of a sheet of paper.
Yep. Yep. And that is a big thing. Look, I don't blame the grocery stores for doing it. They've got to deal with the prices that they get. And then they've got to find a way to make it palatable to the rest of us. There's a lot of government policy behind some of these price increases.
Oh, yeah.
That's a topic.
Should the government step in so these greedy corporations aren't allowed to fuck you at when you're paying for your groceries with shrinkflation, giving you less food for more money? How do you feel about that, Brian? Is that too much government intervention for you? Is that too much communism, Brian?
For another day. Dr. Eric Kam, thanks so much for your time today.
What a banger.
Stay healthy, Brian.
All right.
What a banger, dude. That was Lilley Unleashed, everybody.